Let me welcome everyone. Let me welcome you to the Future Trends Forum. My name is Brian Alexander. I'm the forum's host, creator, and chief cat herder. I'll be your host for the next hour. I'm very, very glad to see all of you here today. This is an unusual session today. We've had a last-minute topic change. I'll explain that. But first, let me introduce the forum, especially for people who are new to it. So, Christopher, why don't you advance the slide, please? So the forum is a discussion platform. This is a venue for having conversations, and it's spun out of the Future Trends in Technology and Education report. So if you haven't seen that, FTTE is a monthly trends analysis that looks at nearly 90 trends that reshape education and technology. It comes out every month. It's a big fat PDF with lots and lots of charts, references, footnotes, all written in the arcane language that is English. We just had the most recent issue, came out earlier this week. So if you haven't gone to it yet, go to ftte.us and sign up. Now, the FTTE report and the Future Trends Forum are part of my larger project called the Future of Education Observatory. If you haven't seen that, this is a multimedia, open, ongoing, conversation-based exploration of the future of education. We have a whole bunch of projects, including a widely read blog, the FTTE report, this very forum, and some more projects coming up, including our continuing bookstore and book club. So if you haven't seen that, go to futureofeducation.us and you can learn more. Now, one thing you should think about this is that all of our work, all these discussions are not just based in one country, but they're global. We've had participation from literally around the world, every continent except Antarctica. I hope to get there at some point. We think about where education could be going. It's important to remember that the higher education market is now global. And the innovations, be they technological or non-technological, can happen from anywhere. Malaysia, India, New Jersey. So you have to keep an eye on the whole stage, the global stage. And that's what we're going to be talking today. Now, next slide, please. Now, in order to do this work, we've had support of some very generous sponsors, and I'd like to thank them before we proceed. I'd like to thank NYSERNet from New York State, a nonprofit that helps keep that state's colleges, universities, and libraries on broadband. We're very grateful to them for their support. We're also grateful to Shindig, because you can tell Shindig makes available this great technology. So let me just walk you through it if there are parts that you haven't seen or if you're new to it. First of all, where I am right now, where this slide is just for a minute, it's called the stage. And everybody here in this video conference can see and hear everybody that's on the stage. And you can join us. I'll show you how in just a second. But below us is what I think of as the participant swarm. You can look around and you can see all kinds of icons. You might see Mike Welker with his headphones and glasses. You might see Monty Kaplan, who is a silhouette right now. And each of those icons represents one person or a login with some people around the table. Now, if you'd like to learn more about those people, if you want to talk to them, just double-click on them. And if they want to talk to you, your two icons will put together like Lego bricks. You can have your own private audiovisual bubble of conversation. Now, all those participants you'll see will keep moving and they'll keep talking, which is fantastic. Now, I said this is about conversation and discussion, so let me show you the different ways that we can have that kind of conversation. At the bottom of the screen, you see that white strip running along that I mentioned a few minutes ago. There are three options there that you can use for communication. So on the very far left edge, you'll see a number, I think 50, a few heads, and next to it a kind of cartoon dialog box. If you click on that, up will pop two windows. Now, one of those windows on the left will look like an old school film strip. And it has little icons for everybody here. And you can mouse over them and learn that Phyllis Brodsky is the assistant professor at practice. You can learn that Karen, our son, is from Shindig. And that Mike Welker is the coordinator of e-learning innovation. So to the right of that, you'll see a chat box. And the chat box has right now lots of times for people introducing themselves. People from Connecticut, people from Penn State, people from Broome Community College in Binghamton, people from Arizona, and so on. So all for the next hour, that chat box is yours to type in questions, comments, thoughts as we go. We monitor that as we progress. You'll find that people often like to make informal comments there or jokes, and also they like to try out ideas that they don't want to fully share yet. They want some feedback, or they may just share links that come up during a conversation. And hello, Megan. Greetings to Alaska. I hope you are enjoying summer as it is. Now, there's two other ways you can interact on that white strip. Next to the cartoon dialog box, you'll see a question mark with a circle around it. If you mouse over it, the word ask will appear. Click on that, and you'll get a little box where you can ask a question. You can type it in. So what happens is when the time is right, we'll display that on the screen so everyone can see it, and I'll read out loud so everyone can hear. Now next to that little ask button is my favorite button, which is a raised hand. If you click that, that tells us you want to join us up here on the stage. And if your camera is working, if your microphone is on, and you're in a spot where you can talk out loud, excellent. Click that, and we'll beam you up on stage just like Star Trek, and we can have a conversation face to face. In fact, up to 4 people can be up here on the stage at any given time. So that can be me plus 3 of you. We can have a kind of panel as we go. If you haven't seen this before, it's really easy to do, and it takes less time to accomplish than it did for me to describe. So click on the raise hand for video, type in that question mark for comments, use a chat box for running conversation. All of those work. And if you're on Twitter, on another tab or another computer, please use the hashtag FTTE. And I'll be checking that for comments to see what you think. So that's how technology works. That's how you can communicate with each other. That's how we host the conversations. And thank you to Shindig for making it possible. Our last group of supporters is from Patreon. And I want to thank all the Patreon supporters who've been so kind and generous. If you haven't seen it, Patreon is a crowdfunding site that helps support a creative project, a creative person. And here they support my work in the future of education and technology. And you can see there are dozens of people who sign in to contribute as little as $1 a month just to keep everything running. You can see from the screenshot that we have people like Tom Haynes, Jeannie Kim Han, Kyle Johnson, Bob Johnson, Robin DeRosa, Karen Mathieu, Chris Lau, all kinds of people who support us. I'm really grateful to them. If you haven't seen it, go to patreon.com/BrianAlexander and check it out. I'm really grateful to them for their support. Now, on to this week. Due to a last-minute health crisis, this week's guest had to be postponed, and we're going to return to Jennifer Sparrow, hopefully in a few weeks. So check your email box for the latest announcement. But we're very, very sad, and I hope she feels better, and we wish her the best of health. Now, that gives us an opportunity. I initially scheduled in a few weeks to have a special session, but I'm bringing it up to today because it's that important. What I'd like to do for the next hour is to work with all of you to figure out and brainstorm where the forum can go next. I have a whole bunch of questions to ask, and I have some ideas, but the important thing for the next minutes is to hear from you about what you would like to do, what you would like to see from the forum. So we've got questions, we've got a whole bunch of ideas, so I'm going to ask you to think about this and bring this up. Now, just to get started, Christopher, you can hide that slide. Let me just mention a few things about where we've come in June 2018. We began the forum in February of 2016. Our first guest was the excellent Audrey Waters. Since then, we've been going for almost 2.5 years. We've had about 98 different guests. We've had more than 107 YouTube recordings, close to 100 hours of recordings on YouTube. And the total number of people like yourselves is 2,090. So just a little over 2 years, starting from scratch, we have grown up something that is, I think, unique right now. We have a discussion-based forum for exploring the future of education and technology. And you all help make it work. So first of all, I just want to applaud and say fantastic, fantastic, congratulations. What a tremendous achievement. And again, this is unique. Nobody else is doing this. So what I'd like to do now, thinking about that, is think about the future of the Future Trends Forum, where we can take this. Now, I'd like to ask you a few questions, but to begin with, let me just ask you, what do you value about this right now? What do you like? What good do you get out of this forum process? And I'm asking this not just to make us all feel good, although that counts, but because I'm thinking about this in terms of design thinking. And we'll start from first principles. You want to revise something and figure out what's good about it. What value do you see? So take a minute and think about that value. And at the bottom of the screen, click on one of those buttons and start typing or clicking or asking the journalists on stage. First question, what is the value you see? What is the value you get? Like the value is inspiration to grow a beard, that counts, but that's not the best. That's not the best. Oh, and by the way, if you haven't seen this, over here to my right, you should see a join podium button. So if it's too much trouble to go to the bottom of the screen and click that raised hand, just click the join podium. You should be able to come straight up. So we've already seen some answers in the chat box. Let me just read these back. And again, by the way, I have some ideas, but this session is about you and your thoughts. So Myron Williams mentions networking and new information, which is great. Again, this is a community-based project, so networking should really work. And new information. Thank you. Vicky Romano says connections with colleagues internationally and timely. And that's definitely true. We have all these international connections again in the community network. Thank you, Vicky. And she adds, no budget for travel, so this is best for connections. And just think about this a little further ahead. You think about the future of work in the world. And we may be seeing more and more use of video conferencing and less use of face-to-face travel. So this may be a good practice. Megan Kuhn adds, access to new ideas and different ways of thinking. Excellent. So it's a content that we bring out to these different people, these different guests with their different projects and approaches. Thank you, Megan. And Rita Marie Conrad, the value to me is inspiration in this hour, and it helps give me to nudge my institution forward. Bravo, Rita. I hadn't thought about that. Institutional change. Thank you. Thank you. And Mike Welker, this is only my second live one, but access to timely thought leaders and collegial dialogue and what comes next. Thank you. Thank you. I'm really glad to hear that. And by the way, welcome. They're on your second one. Terrific. Make sure you see the recordings on YouTube. And Roxanne, hello, Roxanne, one of our great Star Wars heroes. Roxanne says, open discussions with key stakeholders, learning about new resources. Again, I think one of the things that I love about this is that we can convince people like Andrew Waters or like Martin Dugamas or Cory Doctorow to spend time with us. And you get to talk to them and hang out with them. Excellent. Excellent. I'll give you another minute to add a few more things. Oh, Kate Herzog asks a terrific question. Our certification is going to trump degrees. That's a great question. And I think that's Kate, first of all, I want to hold on to that question because that may be something that we should have more discussion on. Here, let me just add this. But let me ask you one thing, Kate. We get a chance, however you want to answer this. Should the forum think about issuing certificates? Should we think about having a micro-credential or a badge for, say, someone who has participated in 20 sessions or something like that, or a guest who's been on 2 times in a row? So we'll toss it out there as a possibility. So we almost had Myron. Oh, just lost Myron at the podium. Okay, we'll try again. We had a few more comments just came in the chat box. So Paul Bonds is a broader awareness of where we are and where we're going in higher ed beyond my local environment. Thank you, Paul. Thank you. That's really well said. And Ed Hilton says, I value the knowledge shared by practitioners and thought leaders as we shape our programs for K-12 students. Excellent, excellent. And most of our focus has been on higher ed, but I've been trying to make sure that we have as much engagement with K through 12 as possible. Thank you. That's a lot of thought. Thank you. That's a lot of value. It's really important to see that. And we have one video. Let's see if we can have former guest Maria Anderson, fantastic calculus prof and the CEO of CourseTune. Maria, can you hear us and see us?
I can, yeah. Can you hear me?
Perfectly, perfectly. Where are you today?
I'm in Salt Lake today.
Oh, great. Oh, great. I bet it's sunny and hot.
It is sunny and hot. That is exactly right. That's exactly right. I was actually curious, based on your last question, how many of your participants see value in having a certificate of some sort from a professional organization? I know that I go to a ton of conferences and people hand me certificates all the time for speaking at the conference or giving a presentation at the conference, and I kind of think, meh, like, they just kind of, they don't really do anything for me, right? Like, and I'm just curious, like, we spend a lot of time talking about certificates and talking about, how can we give alternative credentials? How many of you actually have found value in one of those, like, alternative certificates, alternative credentials, like it's done something for you other than sit on a piece of paper?
Oh, I only have one that I value like that. I took a class with the Howard Rheingold taught online. So he just created this entire class, taught it by himself using digital technology. It was a terrific class. And the certificate was actually a fold-out paper that you could print that we could fold into a cube. It was pretty cool. But it was for me, it's a kind of icon or an avatar of a terrific unusual experience, and that's the one I keep. I haven't added badges for presenting at different places. Just personally, that hasn't been very useful to me. So maybe something we should not do then.
I mean, I would guess the people who come here because they want to hear from great speakers and ask questions and be, stimulated in their thoughts, right? Like, I'm guessing that your participants, like me, are coming for that reason, and I could be wrong. They can tell you if I think I'm wrong.
That seems to be
I have only one thing I care about too, and I had it framed. So back in 2009, I think, I participated in a game jam at a conference at George Mason, and it was judged by Will Wright, who is the guy who made SimCity and Spore, and I won. Our team won the contest. So I have a certificate signed by Will Wright saying that I won a game jam, and that I have framed next to my PhD. But other than that one, like you, like the others, don't do a lot. Like, I think, most of us are in education because we have a passion for learning, and that's what we care about, right? So how do you tap that? That could be the network, right?
Well, let me bring something from the chat box. We've got a couple of people say it's not an individual thing, it's an institutional thing. Eileen Frank says, my institution values the paperwork. A certificate, even for attendance, is helpful for tenure promotion portfolios. Maybe a community college thing. Vicky Romano says the same for a certificate for presentation at conference. And Myron, I hope you can get back on the video if you can, says that certificates are valued for showing administrators that we are active learners.
Oh, see, so I worked at a college that had no promotion and had no, there were no ranks or anything like that. You didn't get raises. You didn't, there was none of that. So they didn't care. So it could be a cultural difference. It's never been a dime to me to have them.
Well, we have on your side, we have the classic American work of art, which has the phrase, "We don't need no stinking badges." So we've got that. On the other side, we have the institutions, which might need this. So it's something to think about. Let me ask, now that I've got you here on the stage, Rita, so for you, the value that you get out of this is these conversations with terrific people, both the great guests that we bring in and the people who are here in the participant swarm. Is that the big value for you as well?
Yeah, I think it's seeing the perspective of folks at different schools, just like this, right? Like, my perspective is, well, it's never done anything for me, but I can see how it might help other folks if that's what the administration wants to see is the paper certificate. Then that maybe that's why people hand them out still.
Let's build on that a little bit. Before we do, I think we have Kate here. Let's see if we can. Hello, Kate.
Hi. Can you
Hi.
hear me?
I can. Where are you today?
Conway, South Carolina.
Hey. I bet you it's hot.
Oh, it's definitely hot. So I think that it's important for us in higher education to be concentrating on lifelong learning skills, sort of ongoing professional development, and the fact that as time becomes more interdisciplinary, and so you're not in a vacuum, you're not in an educational silo. And I don't recall really getting that when I was in college and graduate school. And to follow up on the professional development in institutions, they don't necessarily want to know how is this going to improve our service, or how is this going to improve our product, improve what we're giving to the students, you have n number of shows that, yeah, doing your profession thing. I don't know if anybody else does that.
I think we may have lost you. Nope, there you are. There you are. Good. I think you have an ally in the chat box, Paul Herzog. I'm sorry, not Herzog. Let me just pull this back up again. Paul Bond said that for him, one of the values is getting out of the immediate campus environment. So getting beyond the silos, being able to talk to people. Much like just now, we just had this exchange between Maria and Eileen, who had two completely different institutional backgrounds. One which could care less about promotion, certificates, and so on, and another one she valued highly. I'm delighted.
I actually thought promotions were evil. It was really weird.
Wow, kind of commune, really.
It was a union school. Nobody can be better than anybody else.
Harrison Bergeron. Yeah. This is great. Well, let me ask you then, if I could, this question of perspective, this question of guests and voices. What kind of topics would you like to hear coming up? And what kind of guests should we be recruiting? Who would you like to see? I've already hit up a bunch of people. We have some guests coming up. And some people have had the temerity to say no, but some have said yes. So we will have more. Who should we bring up? Who would you like to see? Okay, join us up here with join Maria and I, or just type in the chat box, or if you want to type in the question mark, or just click the raised hand to join us on stage and riff. You can tell we're pretty friendly.
I think it'd be really interesting to try to bring a couple guests who used to work at the Department of Education and don't anymore.
That's a really good one. Thank you.
I'm so it's a black box right now. What's going to happen in higher ed in the United States, right? I mean, there doesn't appear to be any leadership there that knows higher ed. I'd be curious to hear from some of the folks who especially pay attention to accreditation in higher ed. Like, what's going to happen? Are we going to have a free-for-all in terms of what's legal and what's not? Are we still going to be self-policing? Are the accreditation bodies going to be changing? I think those would be really interesting folks to talk to.
Yeah, oh, that's really helpful. And while Marie was talking, people in the chat box were typing like mad. And we've had Rita Marie Conrad mentions that she loved the cutting-edge authors we've had in the past. Terrific. I'm glad to hear it. Really pleased to get Cory Doctorow last month. Rita Marie, if you have any other authors that you'd like us to bring in, please let us know. Anyone that want name, please go ahead. Roxanne mentions any college or university president. Thanks. There's a couple that we have coming up in July. I'll announce as soon as we have the schedule pinned down. But I'd like to get some more. And Michael Roth would be great. I've talked to him before, and I've got an inquiry with him right now. So hopefully we can bring him up. Chris Gamra, on the subject of badges, recommended a couple of people, Nate Otto and Dan Hickey. So thank you for that. Ed Hilton. Please go ahead. Sorry.
Have you met David Blake from Degreed?
I think I've met him. See, if I don't offhand, I don't recall him as a pretty. You think he'd be good for this?
That would be interesting if you're exploring alternative credentialing. I know Degreed has some really unique perspectives on that.
Okay. Tell me the name again. I'm sorry.
David Blake.
And then Rita Marie mentions Michael Horn and Heather Staker. Very good. Now, we had Michael Horn, so we might get him back. And Heather would be great. Thank you. And then Ed Hilton has a whole list. Future grades, assessment, mastery certification, etc. We in K-12 have difficulty moving to alternative assessment due to higher education requirements, transcripts, credits, AF grades. Yeah, that's really, really true. And it's also a huge issue with community colleges. The whole issue of moving credits between institutions is very, very difficult in the United States. And Michelle Miller, Rita Marie, who's Michelle Miller? I should know this. if you just quickly say something, or throw a link, that'd be good. And Myron, thanks. Myron added for topics assessing online learning communities versus face-to-face communities and assessing through alternative measures. Huge ones, Myron. Thank you. It's interesting how few of these topics have to do with technology. Are there any technology issues that we should be bringing up, or any technology topics? Thanks, Ed, for Dr. Robert Marzano. And again, if you'd like to join us on the stage to rant about this, please feel free. Monty Kaplan mentions attention management, attention spans. Absolutely. Monty, there was a piece in the Guardian this morning I haven't had a chance to see yet, but it was arguing that the findings of that issue are ambivalent right now. They're getting findings on both sides. Chris goes on to add impact of machine learning and artificial intelligence. Yes. Chris, if there's anyone in particular that you'd like us to get, please let us know. There's a growing bevy of people doing that. Learning analytics. Yes. Definitely. We've touched on that in the past. We need to do more. Mike mentions Mike Welker. Hello, Mike. Learning spaces. Yes. Yes, indeed. And then Myron goes back to mobile devices because we're still figuring that out. Roxanne brings us back to immersive experiences in 360. Roxanne, have you played with immersion yet? Let me know if you get a chance to look at that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I have.
That's a fun thing. Do you know anybody there that would be especially good at talking to humans? Yeah.
Talking to humans, the puppets. The digital puppets.
I know.
That's who you should bring in there.
Is anybody there who's especially good at manipulating one of those digital puppets?
I'm sure they have somebody who could do it. That would be fascinating.
Good people. And Ed reminds us of AR and VR, and we have that in the pipeline. In fact, we'll have Maya and Emery come back to update us on that as soon as we can figure out our complicated schedules. Thank you.
There's a guy at Stanford who does AR, VR simulations with teaching patients for hospitals about the surgeries they're going to have, like that. What is his name? I can look it up. 1 second.
It'll come to you. It'll come to you. Well, thank you, everybody. This is a tremendous amount of stuff. Thank you. Thank you. I can really see that the guests and the topics we address are really, really valuable. Because insight. Let me toss in an idea that came up earlier. And again, these are all ideas that people have thrown out, so I want to share them and see what you think. Someone suggested that we do a series of forum sessions that are either tutorials or explanations of something. So to pick, say, for example, machine learning. So get one person who could take us through machine learning, and then a few weeks later follow up with another machine learning person and so on. So we call it something like forum tutorial or forum seminar, that kind of thing. So would that be useful for you? That kind of really specifically pedagogical assignment? Would that be something you'd like to see?
Quiet.
Great. Is Walter Greenleaf as the
That's the guy.
Stanford person?
Yeah.
Thanks.
He's just doing some really amazing stuff with educational VR, right? So I think he's great. And he's a good speaker too.
We get brilliant people on here and we try to make them as accessible as possible. They also have to be able to communicate with humans, and that can be tricky sometimes.
I think I'll ask your question while we wait for somebody to answer in the chat. I find that like the value of forums like this is that there's like a conversation between people, right? And not just let me tell you about something, right? And so many places we can go on the internet for I need to learn more about this topic, right? I need a class on this topic. I don't think that's the specific value of the Future Trends Forum. I think it's more around like let's dive into an interesting conversation and see where it goes. So like I think the idea of like a theme that pulls together several sessions is great. But I know if I'm going to try to learn about machine learning or something like that, that there are people who put together expert experiences to give you from where you are to where you need to be. So I'd probably go look at those.
Thanks. There's a interesting piece in the Atlantic, by the way, about this movement on Instagram to take YouTube how-to videos and translate them into Instagram threads. So I want to keep an eye out for that. It was kind of interesting to see. Well, I'm grateful for your thoughts, friends, and let me just build on this from a different angle then. And then let me raise the question of numbers. Oh, and we have someone joining us. Before I can make that shift, Toehold Learning is here. Hello, Mark.
Hi, Brian. How you doing?
Good. Welcome.
Great.
Welcome.
Great. I just wanted to. I was having trouble with the little texting thing, so I thought I'd just jump up here. And I wanted to ask what other people think about this. Well, maybe it's just me, but it strikes me that we have in the Future Trends Forum a wonderful group of excited early adopters. And necessarily, many of those people may be working in situations where they are not surrounded by other early adopters, but are more surrounded by people maybe somewhat resistant to change and the future of education. And so maybe beyond, I love the idea of the sort of practical courses on like, okay, what do we actually need to know about machine learning or something like that? But maybe there are other discussions that focus more on working, sort of the act of working in the context of higher education, where, how do we usher in the future of higher education in ways that are productive? So more on the work side rather than just the tech side, but I like that. But I just wanted to throw that idea out there, see if other people think some of those, real world applications, how do we become agents of change type
Nice.
Conversations.
Thank you. That's a very good one. I didn't get to ask you, where are you today? Are you in New Jersey or are you in the West Coast?
Still New Jersey. Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry to hear that, but okay. But we have the opposite. We have Vicky Romano in Iowa. Hello, Vicky.
Hello. I just wanted to echo yes and amen on the last one. I mean, I am now, we've had some reshuffling, so I'm now actually part of HR. I know. Yeah. But we have a new president coming in, so lots of good energy coming in. She's coming from Illinois. I've worked for her before. She's just great. But I need my people, right? So I can't be here and say, well, we need to look at this. Like I'm trying to bring OERs. I'm trying to give the one person who's working on this a forum, a place to be, a place to connect faculty. And I just sometimes need people who, like, I'm still kind of pulling a little bit. So I need the place where it's like, yes, people are talking about this, because publications are too slow anymore. When I'm meeting with someone, I need to be able to hear it, within the week, or it's old. So just for me, that's what's really helpful. And that's where my power is. Kind of the same thing along the lines of, I think, why a lot of us were worried about the Horizon report. Because that was the place that I went, that I said, well, when someone asked me, well, how do you know that? And it's like, well, because I've been doing this for 30 years. But no, I can say, well, in the Horizon report, these are the suggestions that were. So I have that place. Yes, I know it because I know it, and I've been involved in the community since, we were doing Brown Bear calendar, 25 years ago. But I think this is the place where I go and say, well, I know that because so-and-so at this place and so-and-so at that place. So for me, you're my people, whether you like to be or not. So, yeah.
Well, we're glad to be. I think speaking on behalf of everybody, we're glad to be here.
The people of the internet.
Woo!
Some of it.
Internet. How's that? The people with the friendly internet.
The friendly internet. That's us.
The happy place where I can be collegial and positive. Yes, I love it.
That's in all seriousness. That's something I've been trying since the beginning to make sure that people could feel comfortable and not unchallenged. We have a lot of arguments. We have dissension. We have guests who clearly are loggerheads with each other. But I want to make sure that everybody feels supported in this place where you can connect.
Because I can say, well, on my campus we did this, and no one's judging. I mean, my campus is just where it is, and my faculty are just where they are, and it's just a place where you can say, yeah, I've been there, I've been that, and the non-judginess is appreciated.
Okay. Excellent. That's a nice value to have. Well, let me ask then about, since the friendly people of the internet. Here's one question that really comes back to me. How can we expand this? How can we get more and more friendly people on the internet involved in these conversations? I mean, we started from zero. Right? This didn't spring off of anything else. That was conversation based. This began with zero. And now my MailChimp file has 2,100 people about. And in any given session, we have between 30 odd and 180 people, which is great. I'm very, very happy. How can we grow that? And how can we diversify? How can we grow people, populations around the world in different sectors? I mean, what's the best way to do that, do you think? This is for everybody. I mean, how can we grow these crowds? How can we expand the participant swarm? How can Brian kill a conversation by asking the wrong question? No. But I'm serious.
One thing you can do is bring a friend day, right? Like have a some kind of contest. I don't know what you give out, but bring a friend day.
Yeah.
You get a T-shirt
Nice.
with Brian's beard on it or something, like a beard on your T-shirt, and
Do this.
whoever brings a friend to the forum gets entered into a contest, and they get to win the beard T-shirt, right? If your name is.
That's nice.
That would be very silly, but that's how you grow a forum, right? You bring friends.
I'm glad Maria said that, because I was sort of sitting there reluctantly just thinking like, gosh, we need to go to some of these like old school tools of like create a small product that people want, get their emails, give it to them in exchange for those emails, right? Start to grow it out so that we can, so it is more of that exchange, and we get onto more people's radars. And maybe there are opportunities here with the Horizon report sort of, going down to create some of those resources. They don't even have to be complex or super long, but again, like bring a friend day. I love that. And that way we can, I think even just in the email reminders, reminding people that, hey, here's the thing we're talking about today. Do you know one person who might benefit from that particular conversation, right? Because it is such a broad range of topics. So just a couple of those little how to grow a business approaches.
Well, we do some of that in a sense that we have behind the scenes, we have a pretty meticulous email list activity. It's a distribution list, it's not a discussion list. But I think that's a great idea. By the way, before we go further, just one lesson. The best pun of the day comes from Marie Conrad responding to another great idea from Maria, which is having a session in which everyone brings their favorite mobile apps, and Marie called it Appy Hour. So I just as a dad, that's fantastic dad humor. I mean, that's just terrific. But we have, in answer to this question, we have some other really good ideas. Let me just quickly bring these up from the chat box. And again, I'm so glad to see that you guys are just throwing out ideas. Let's see. Rita Marie asks if we should partner with other groups like ELI. So just very, very quickly, I've started this process. I've been reaching out to a few different groups. Some have said they're interested but don't have the bandwidth. I'm working right now with one group that I shouldn't mention yet because it's still ill-formed. But I'll let you know once that begins to develop, if it does. The ELI is a great one to go for. Thank you, Rita Marie. Ed Hilton mentions another strategy, and this is one that has come before, and I want to. Ed, hang on, I come back to that. So this is a big one that goes a little bit in a different direction. Roxanne reminds us that we should bring back Costume Day, which was great. We've done that before. We had a holiday party. We should definitely have more and more costumes, I think. Rick says that we should do more face-to-face events. He says, I haven't heard of you or the forum before the pre-conference workshop you did at EDUCAUSE last year. Keep doing things like that. Meetups at major conferences might help strengthen the existing group. This is a great idea. We've been doing some live sessions at different groups, including Campus Technology, EDUCAUSE, NMC, NYSERDA's NYSCIO event, and I think those are a lot of fun, and that would be a really fun thing to do. Thank you, Rick. Let me come back to Ed's idea, and this is a kind of a bridge idea. We have this weekly session. It's a live event. It's an hour-long discussion like we're doing right now. But between those hours, we have almost 7 days of other time. And I've asked people about this, what kind of things they'd like to see. And we've had some interesting suggestions. So Ed hits this on the head. It's a social platform to communicate between weekly forums. So what's come up before? One is to have a Twitter, either a continuous, just keep the session going with the FTTE hashtag, or to have a tweet up or a Twitter chat, so an hour dedicated to that. That's one. The second is to use a pre-existing social media platform to host an online asynchronous community, be it Facebook, LinkedIn, or Google+. The third is for me or somebody else to actually host a separate kind of asynchronous discussion. For example, using BuddyPress or this new tool called Discourse that seems to be like probably the best BBS right now. Yeah. What do you all think of that? Having, call this thing, Ed, you're probably tired of puns about your name, but call it the Hilton, right? We want to set up the Future Trends Forum Hilton. Where is this a good idea, and where should it be? What should it look like?
Yeah, I for one think it's great. We should get other people up here, but I think that's a fantastic idea. I think Discus is a really good one. Telegram might also be a good option.
Really, Telegram can do groups.
I think it can. Yeah, I think it. My understanding is that would be a perfect platform for that. Also, Slack, but it will be more expensive with from that. But it's unclear how Telegram plans to make money, so it's all just pretty open and free right now. Yeah,
I think offending the Russian government is their business model right now.
Yeah, that works.
I don't know how long that'll work.
Get it.
Okay, so Telegram, thank you. There's one more, Slack as well. On the chat, people, let me just bring this back. Hang on.
I just don't need another group to join, right? I would prefer it to be somewhere where, so I'm just echoing what Noreen said in the chat here. I would prefer it to be somewhere where I'm already at, because anytime I'm already in a group at this point that I don't have, I had this theory a long time ago. I think I said it in a few workshops and talks, which is that you wake up in the morning, you check 3 things. And if where you put stuff is not on the 3 things that people check in the morning when they wake up, you do not get their attention. A social network does not form. I used to teach a class on social media. It kind of came from that research. Mm-hmm. And so we used to wake up in the morning and check our phone messages. This is a long time ago. Our phone messages, our emails, and maybe read the paper. And we've kind of moved away from that to what do you check now? Think about the 3 things you guys check in the morning. For me, it's my email, my texts, and maybe one social network, right? And whichever those 3 things are, that's where my information is coming. So I joined this because I do get an email that says, hey, don't forget to come to the Future Forum. And so that's where I get it. And if the conversation, moved to a brand new platform I'm not participating in, then until that platform captures the bandwidth of attention I have for social things, mm-hmm. I think it's really tough to start a new community. Where one audience.
Well, let me just quickly ask then. You said where you want to be where you are already right now. Where are you all? What would be the best site where you feel most comfortable? Would it be email? Would it be Facebook? Would it be LinkedIn? We just quickly.
I would be so curious for all of you to tell me the 3 things you check in the morning. Yeah. What are because I'm guessing that's where you continue to find your voice, Brian, for this forum and for the growth of this forum.
So let me check. We've gotten
unless everybody's dying to try some new platform and they just need a reason to do it. In which case, we should probably Snapchat, because people our age probably don't know how to use it.
Depends on the age. We have a pretty interesting range of ages here. So far, we're getting. I think we're all Noreen. So we've got interesting range. We've had let's see, Twitter, Facebook, email. We're gonna have to start adding this up. Twitter, RSS, good. Twitter, LinkedIn, email, Twitter, platform, Twitter, Facebook. Okay, we're gonna have one Snapchat. All right, that's Barbara Mitchell, by the way. And Mike Welker gets snarky about ages. Excellent. So we're going to have to think about.
Reader is so sad, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're all.
Oh, that's two readers. That's two readers back. Let's see. Tweets.
Maybe there's a way to automate some of that, right? Because we are really all spread out across a bunch of different platforms. If it's not in my email or come across as a notification on Twitter, right? It's chaos in the stream, right? So if it's not coming across like one of those channels, then it does become, it's not going to hit your attention. So maybe I'm sure there's smart people out there who know how to do this even better, where you find ways to identify, pick your social pipe that you want that connected, want to be connected through. And maybe we're not trying to have the conversation across all of those simultaneously, but just to be notified, hey, we're talking about this in X platform. So go there. At least that could be one option.
Let's get Tom. Hello, Tom.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
All right, couple of points. There is a structure of the human brain called BIAN, and it's the one you need to use to grow your group. I have studied it in the past. It's only reasonably effective, but its key point is to envision success. So if you get your people to envision success with the idea, then you'll get them in action. Scaring them into action, which is what the ecology groups most often do, is grossly ineffective and very slow. If you wish to discuss buy-in at some length, I can, but not in the few minutes left. My point is we need to define the future that we are using. We're confident that there's going to be very substantial sea level rise, and that the human population will peak between 2050 and 2100. The net effect of these two alone is totally rebuild society from the ground up. And we need to discuss the future of education, not in today's society, which makes the assumption that not much is going to change, a completely invalid assumption for the 21st century, but in some agreed upon future. And it's enormously difficult and contentious work to build that future. But as a project, I'd suggest that is a major project.
Those are two great,
but it won't be out in the fall till the fall. Won't be published till the fall.
Let me know when that's out. Just two things I'm going to pull out of that, and thank you for this. One is you're grabbing the microphone right now, so we can. So one thing is the idea of climate change in education. That's actually something we should have a session about, perhaps with a guest dedicated to that. But the other is this idea of visualizing success. So let me translate that. What I was thinking of success had three different parts. One was growing the size and diversity of the forum. The second is the idea of making this sustainable. And that's something which I wanted to end on. And the third is to experiment with what kind of ways we can address the forum. So everything from having an happy hour, having costumes, but also things like, should we have more small group discussions? So I wanted to make sure we have that. But putting all these together, what I'm envisioning success is a growing, sustainable group that is continually bringing in great ideas and great people and hosting these conversations as we go. As I'm doing that, the chat group keeps racing ahead with still more ideas, which is great. It sounds like, let me take a step back from that. Back to Ed Holton's point. If we're talking about asynchronous platforms, we're going to need to figure out a way to figure out where we like to be. So I think a poll will be best. I'm going to be surveying the entire 2,100 or so people, hopefully next week, to ask about this very question. And one of the questions I can ask Maria would be to have what are the 3 platforms you most want to use, the ones that you are currently using. We also had a few different ways of using each one that came from the chat box, including the distinction between different ways of using Facebook and different types of uses for Twitter, everything from tweet chat on. This is terrific, guys. I had one more question to ask, but let me stop before I do that. What are some of the questions you want to ask? What are some of the other ideas for the forum that we haven't touched on so far today?
I have one that was kind of fun that we used to do for professional development at my college, which was like, I think like a lot of us, I'd be so curious about a show of hands on this one. I have lists of videos I mean to watch, right? Like I'm like, oh, that looks like a fabulous talk. I'm putting it on my list, right? And you become like a digital hoarder of like stuff you mean to do, right? So what we would do every once in a while is we'd have like a morning where we'd get together and we'd like actually watch a couple of these things we've been meaning to do together, right? And so it'd be kind of, and we would have a conversation about each one as it went. So like it'd be kind of fun to host some like, especially maybe in the summer, some like camp days, right? Where you pick a couple of interesting keynotes or something that are online that maybe people haven't had a chance to dive into. They might be controversial. They might, something like that. You say, okay, here's the schedule from 9 to 10. We watch the video. From 10 to 11, we discuss it. We throw down on our various sides of like what we think, right? So all I know is I'm digitally hoarding about 200 of these things and never get to them. So
digital hoarder. Mike Welker in chat calls it the pot stirrer's kitchen table talk.
Yeah.
This is back in the. Please go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I really like that idea, and that sort of, I think, dovetails with a few of the conversations that you've been sort of having around the future and the sustainability of this. Like maybe there are sort of, subgroups like this where, and this goes back to, I'm sorry, I forget his name, the previous gentleman's comment about like envisioning success. What is it what is the transformation that we Future Trends Forum people go through in engaging in this way? And that might be, because there's such a broad range of awesome topics that we talk about, it's a little bit less clear how to identify that exact success. But if we have subgroups who are saying, okay, I'm in the faculty development subgroup and we're going to go through these videos and we're going to talk about these, discuss these sort of events, it becomes a little bit more clear to say in the, when you sign up for the Future Trends Forum, you're clicking sort of subgroups you might like and have a sense of like, oh, that is the transformation that I want to see. I do want to become a faculty, development person who's thinking about X, or becoming Y. So I think that sort of, and it also might make it a little bit more sustainable for you, Brian, because I can't imagine this is the easiest of forums to organize. And so maybe there are subgroup leaders. Yeah, we're terrible. So possibly subgroup leaders and ways for people to take sort of a subgroup leadership role in terms of helping sort of organize sort of the subgroup's activities.
So would a subgroup be, for example, you, Mark, and say Allied Health or Maria, either visualization or startups? Are those the kind of, for example, would those be some of them?
Yeah, I think you talked about themes, right? Like themes that you could run, and you could pick a few themes, like, you talk to an ed tech company, or, like everything having to do with the ed tech company you work with. And you could spread those out through the year. So like, maybe once a month, that theme shows up again, so that you have somebody responsible for some other theme and you don't have to take the full shoulder the full weight of it, right? I like the idea of doing kind of active things during these. Like I was thinking as Mark was talking, that I used to do these activities with faculty in workshops where we would riff off a scenario, kind of like what we've been doing today, right? Where I would say, like, okay, imagine that, so I'll just give you an example. Imagine that 20% of the population went blind and your college has successfully navigated this and are a leader in the world. How did you do it, right? And like everybody could split into groups, figure out, because these are like wild card scenarios and while they're wildcard scenarios, you learn a lot by trying to figure out how you would have navigated a situation like that. You learn a lot about how you actually want to do things now from those types of things. So, I mean, just doing those kinds of like things that we would do in futuring workshops, right? That would be a fun thing to do once a month, you know?
Love it.
Idea.
Love it.
I do this, Maria and I both done this, you know, I did everything from give a whole group one scenario and also break the group into different groups. Each one gets a related scenario and they all have to respond and put them together. That would be a lot of fun.
And with the more focused topic, like Maria's suggesting, we'll get perhaps a little bit more conversation going on in the little subgroups of people in Shindig. We can take the power of Shindig, whereas in the larger group, there's a much broader diversity of people. And so it might become easier for a small subgroup to do that. Have those conversations.
And those groups can organize as they want. Ed just put up some hashtags, for example. He put FTTE K-12 or FTTE administrators. This is fantastic. I love this idea. I mean, not just because you say Brian can do less work. Whoa, what a crazy! But I love the idea of you all, you know, growing this yourselves. You know, taking something you're passionate about, if it's K-12 or allied health or startups or whatever, and running with it. I think that's fantastic. We are at the end of the hour. We barely have a minute left, and all these ideas are just constantly coming, which kind of brings us back to the question of how do we get these conversations going between individual sessions. Right? So here are a couple of thoughts just to wrap this up. One is to have a blog post to follow up where I'll share my notes on this. I'll post that so everyone can see. The second is we have a survey that I'm building up that I will send out hopefully next week, depends on the timing and my travel schedule. And that will now include Maria's breakfast threesome. How do you get, what are your 3 digital video or digital venues that you like to stay in? And then we will have maybe another session of this, perhaps in July, so we can follow up. I've got to say, just on a personal note, this is so sweet. All these ideas that come from you all, that you've all surfaced, it's an honor to be with you, to be able to brainstorm. We have a gigantic brain trust, a huge think tank, virtual people spread around the world. I think that's fantastic, and you should all feel just delighted and proud of it. Thank you. We're at the end of the hour. Oh
yeah, thank you, Brian. For I will speak for the masses and reciprocate and say it's genuinely delightful and incredibly sort of emotionally and intellectually fulfilling and rewarding to have this forum, to have these conversations. So thank you so much.
Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you all, and thank you to everyone in the chat who has seconded that motion. Thank you. I was going to say, before we go, I have to tell you about next week, so I can't stop. I have to mention this. Christopher, if you could bring up one slide. We have a potential guest for next week, so watch your email inbox for that, because we have to pin that person down, so that's going to come out. So be ready for that. We're also thinking about where our book club will go next. So I've got a few suggestions, a few titles, and just today we had a few more authors. So please let me know what we should be reading. And to continue this conversation, to follow up on where we should be taking this. Obviously go to the bookstore and buy books, of course, but also go on social media. Right now the hashtag FTTE stands by, waiting for your thoughts. And you can tweet at me directly, and we can continue this. We've built something unique, rare, and special, friends. Let's keep it going and let's grow it together. Thank you all so much. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.